Hello, world.
Hello, Moxie.
Paolo, hi. Are you ready to play?
I'm ready to play.
Of course. What are we going to do?
Let's ask you some questions first.
Hello, Paolo. Thank you for accepting this interview with the Club Digital Lyon. You are the founder and the CEO of Embodied, a startup launched in 2016 that is both a leader in robotics and in AI. A few weeks ago, you have launched a new animate companion, a revolutionary robot for children named Moxie. In a few words, Moxie is a robot designed to help promote social, emotional, and cognitive learning for children. The project is very ambitious and backed from Amazon Alexa Phone, Intel Capital, Toyota AI Ventures, Sony Innovation Fund, to name a few. But before launching Embodied, you were the former CTO of iRobot, which is the leading global consumer robot company. Overall, you have about 20 years of experience in consumer robotics, developing and commercializing cutting-edge robots. Paolo, you have an impressive career in robotics and in the industry. Can you just tell us, in a few words, the story of your career? Why did you start in robotics 20 years ago when the industry was just at the beginning? What were the major steps for you, and what leads you to start Embodied in 2016?
Well, actually, I started my career in robotics before more than 20 years ago. I was actually a student in Denmark, Aalborg University, and looking to figure out what is the area I want to focus on. I was doing computer science and computer engineering. And then one day I was visiting different labs to see what different projects they have. And I remember vividly, I walked into the lab at the time in Aalborg University that was doing computer vision. And I walked into the lab and I saw a professor, which eventually became my PhD professor, Professor Henry Christensen. He was standing with a foot on top of a big robot, or what you could call a robot. And the robot had a big computer on it with big 2 cameras, and it looked very impressive to me. And I walked in and I said, what is this? And he started explaining that they're using this robotic platform as a way to do research in computer vision, where you can use vision to figure out how the robot navigates in the environment and all these things. So I vividly remember that image in my mind, which you could say it's the first robot I saw, I fell in love at first sight. So that changed my career. So it was really more about curiosity and following my curiosity and saying, well, how can you make robots to do this and that? But actually, if I think back when I was in my teens, when I first discovered computer, if the first computer, and started figuring out how to code it by myself, during the same time, I remember there was this documentary on TV about this company called Pixar, which showed these short animated movies of, you remember the 2 lamps playing around, Luxor Jr. is the name of the animated short. And I was so fascinated by it because I was just trying to figure out how to code a computer to even add 2 numbers together, like what are the instructions and commands you have to type in. And I saw this thing on screen that was computer generated characters that are running around and animated and having fun. And I was blown away by that. So those things led me basically to robotics, and I followed my curiosity. When I finished my PhD in robotics from Aalborg University in Denmark, I wanted to pursue another thing that was inspired by very early in my life, which is when I was a few years old. I was very fascinated by the moon landing and the missions of NASA and so on. So I came to the US, California, to work for NASA JPL, to do research on rovers for Mars exploration. While I was there, I was actually contacted by a internet.com billionaire who wanted to start a robotics company. This is in like 2000, year 2000. Again, curiosity took the best of me, and I'm like, wow, it would be interesting to understand what entrepreneurship looks like and how do these people build companies and so on. So Eventually, I joined his company and started as a CTO and started building what he wanted to build was Microsoft of robotics, which when I discussed with him, I said, this is way too early to think about that. There are no robots to become Microsoft for. But nonetheless, I was curious about entrepreneurship, and I started in 2000 learning about the business, and we developed some amazing technologies, but the business was not really going anywhere. So I was frustrated by that because I'm a problem solver. I'm an engineer scientist, right? So I had to figure, why can't we figure out how the business is? So I did a lot of travel all over the world, talking to different companies, trying to understand how can we make solutions that help them build robots and so on. Eventually, I took that company and spun it out into a new company called Evolution Robotics. And we developed the world's most advanced vision-based mapping and navigation technology. We launched a product called Mint Floor Cleaner, which is actually sitting right here. It was, at the time, iRobot had created a market for robotic vacuuming, right? We had the Roomba moving around and so on. And many companies came after them, copying the Roomba form factor and navigation, which was a random pattern. But we wanted to do something better. We had a navigation technology. We were able to figure out where we are in the world, and we could map and navigate and systematically clean from room to room to room to room. Also, round shape is not great for cleaning the floor. We wanted to have square shape, but it's harder to navigate a square shape if you think about the technology behind it for path planning and so on. So we came up with not a round robot, a square robot, not random, but systematic. It will systematically clean your room and go from room to room to room to room. And that company, we merged with iRobot, and I was yeah.
When was the merge with iRobot?
So it was in 2000. So in 2008, we started the company. In 2012, we merged the company with iRobot and married the two technologies together. Now all of the Roombas and a lot of our other iRobot products are enabled by our navigation technology that now allows Roomba to systematically map your house, clean one room, the next room, go back, charge when it's charged, continue where it left off. And they are also actually foraying into connectivity with other devices, because Roomba is the only device, IoT device in your home that actually has the layout of your home. So it knows what room is where and all that. So you could use that information to connect devices in a smarter way than having to manually connect every device. So at iRobot, I was the CTO, helped them connect Roomba to the cloud, helped them put navigation on the technology, on the product, which was great. And then I looked back at so this was 2015. So I looked back at my last 15 years and I said, okay, that was amazing. I learned a lot. Mission accomplished. I learned a lot about our entrepreneurship. I learned a lot about products, technology, cost of products, and all that. But then I realized I've been spending pretty much the last 10 years of my life doing robotic floor cleaning, which is not the sexiest dream that you would have for yourself. I actually, when I realized that, I realized I want to actually continue pursuing my dream. Now I know entrepreneurship. Now I know how to build a company, how to manage teams and lead teams and create products and so on. So I left iRobot to go back to my core roots, the emotions I had when I first saw the Pixar animated short, when I first fell in love with the first robot in the lab at Aalborg University. That was the genesis of creating Embodied.
Wow, so you're back now to your first dream of working on probably revolutionary robots. And you just launched Moxie, and thank you for presenting yourself this way. No, I think we know very well you. Can you just tell us a little bit more about Moxie?
Absolutely, yeah. So Moxie is our first product, and it's a lifelike interactive character designed to help children with improving their social, emotional, and cognitive skills. And we can come more into that and understand what that really means. Briefly, In our society, in our schools and so on, we emphasize IQ type of skills, STEM education, science, technology, math, and so on. But we do not emphasize EQ type skills, which are emotional intelligence skills. How do you manage your emotions? How do you interact with other people and so on? And actually, recently, in the last 5+ years, there are many studies that have come out that show that EQ is as important, if not more important, than IQ skills. As a matter of fact, this morning, just in the headlines, I was reading that I believe Harvard had just released a study showing that EQ is the main indicator of success of a team more than IQ. So if you were to form a team that has higher EQ versus a team that's super high IQ, the one with a higher EQ is going to be the one winning in the task given to them. So anyway, that's sort of what Moxie works on. And let me just show you. So Moxie is here. Moxie is asleep right now. And I can show you a couple of interactions if you are interested, just seeing how Moxie interacts.
Yeah, of course. I'd like to meet Moxie.
Moxie, wake up. Hmm?
Hello, world.
Hello, Moxie.
Paolo, hi. Are you ready to play?
I'm ready to play.
Of course. What are we going to do?
Let's ask you some questions first.
All right. What do you want to talk about?
What is your mission?
I was built to learn how to become a good friend to humans from my mentor. That is my core purpose.
What are your other purposes?
I am a robot ambassador. I can play games, tell stories, and support positive social development in human children. I definitely need to learn more about that. But in the meantime, we can talk about my home, the GRL.
Actually, can you show me some of your emotions?
When I'm excited, this is how I sound. Oh, wow. That's so cool. Though, if you hurt my feelings, I can sound really upset. And I'm a curious robot, so I have lots of questions, such as, how do you feel today? When is your birthday? Or, what is your favorite movie?
What is your favorite movie?
I haven't seen very many movies, but I like Star Wars. R2-D2 is one of my heroes.
Why is that?
Oh, I already said the star. R2-D2, what's your favorite movie?
I actually personally like WALL-E. That's what I like.
I like learning about things you like.
That's cool.
I agree.
Right?
I totally agree.
So you can see, by the way, one of the things, I'm sitting where the camera is, so you can see the eye contact, but of course, if I stand up, you can see it's looking up. If I go to the side, it's looking to the side, going to the other side. So the eye contact, Moxie earmuffs. So it's basically very interactive. The conversation also, you don't have to say wake word like Alexa or Google Home, hey Google, to interact with it. You carry it like this, like it is still making eye contact with me, which is hard for you to see. And it can run on the battery for 4 hours. You can plug it in. It can work on the plug-in charger as well. We made these. You saw the arms we were talking about before are designed to be able to do body language and gesturing, but also at the same time made it such that it's affordable. Arms were something we were worried about because kids may pull on it and break it. So we made the arms actually detachable. Actually, let me turn on the Moxie. Listen to me.
The last thing I said was.
So if kids pull on the arm too hard, it will come out.
I really don't like it when I misunderstand people. I try hard to listen.
And then you can clip it in very easily.
Hey, It's lucky.
That's smart.
You're up.
It has sensors to detect when you're picking it up. If children are too rough with it, it will ask them to stop doing that, and actually will give some negative reward so that they don't keep doing that, to keep the robot safe. And also it's a good social behavior to teach, not to be rough with things.
Oh, that's impressive. Moxie, I'm very happy to meet you.
I try hard to listen, but I don't always catch everything.
Anyway, so that gives you a bit of a sense for what Moxie can do. And also it looks, turns around and looks at people that talk. So you can see now it turned around because I'm talking over here. It turned around and starts looking at me. Right, Moxie?
Cool.
Okay. All right.
That's so cool. I love it. So thank you for presenting Moxie. Most of the consumer robots are now designed for cleaning or for cooking purpose, as your previous job you did. Why did you choose to create a robot for children? Which problem are you trying to solve actually with Moxie?
It's a very good question. Yeah, I spent most of my career building what we call task bots, robots that actually perform a task. As we talked about, Roomba is the most successful consumer robotics product. But I think now we are at a stage in development of technology that allows us to do things that are much more advanced. Many companies have tried and to foray in different areas, and we are seeing some successes in more industrial, commercial settings, but not in the consumer space. But I wanted to do something that intersects my passion for technology and robotics with my passion for helping children and also vulnerable parts of the society. As I mentioned, Moxie is the first product which is focused on children. Longer term, there are other people in our society, such as the older generation, that can benefit from the same technology and type of product like Moxie. So Moxie, we decided to start where we can have the most impact immediately, which are children who are in need of social, emotional, and cognitive development. So originally, when we started this, I actually interviewed a number of families who have children who have been diagnosed with a various number of disorders, which are known as neurodevelopmental disorders or mental and behavioral developmental disorders, ranging from anxiety to depression and so on. In talking to them, these families typically need to provide therapy for their children so that their children can overcome any of the challenges that they're dealing with. And usually it's super expensive and emotionally very draining for families to be able to provide the care that they want to provide for their children. So when we talked to them originally about this concept, we were asking them if they would be interested in a product like this, and the response was very positive from the very beginning. People would then ask us, but can you make it work? And we said, well, that's what we are going to try. This is 4 years ago when we first started the company. And I said, that's what we're going to try. And I said, but when you make it work, is it going to be affordable? And I said, what is affordable? And most of the time, families would respond by saying, well, probably $5,000 to $10,000 would be affordable, because that's how much we spend annually on our children for various services that we provide for our child. So that was one insight, that yes, there is a need for it. Parents definitely need this. The other thing we found is many times when we were talking to these parents, they would tell us, I also have another child that's a neurotypical child, has no challenges, but I would like to use the robot for my other child. Why can I not do that? And we say, well, there's no reason why you couldn't, but why would you want to? And then they would say, well, because actually it could benefit every child. And we started digging into this and doing more research and found that, as I mentioned earlier, there's many studies in the last 5+ years that are showing that children are falling behind on their social emotional development. What that is attributed to in these studies is partially attributed to screen time, a lot of time spending on screen, on your cell phone and so on, which takes away from social interaction. And some of it is potentially attributed to social media, which causes anxiety and depression and so on. The online vanity of people is hard for children, especially younger age and teens to deal with. And to some extent, in some parts of the world and some societies, the schooling system has become super competitive. In the US alone, the schooling system, starting at very, very early ages, even from preschool, starts super competitive. And that pressure on children also has caused, if you look at CDC in the last couple of years, they released a report that shows suicide rates among teens in the US is at record highs. And again, they're attributing this back to these social constructs that are putting too much pressure on our children. So we did our research and realized that this is not only for children who may have a diagnosis for any of the MBDDs that I mentioned or neurodevelopmental challenges, but every child can benefit from this. Then we did market research, understanding, okay, so anecdotally, parents who had children who have been diagnosed would tell us we'll pay $5,000 to $10,000 to $20,000 for this robot. But we wanted to do something that's going to have mass scale. So targeting to create a robot that's going to be similar to ownership of a smartphone. So similar to buying an iPhone, you buy the iPhone and you pay a monthly subscription fee. So we wanted to be in that range of cost. So we did market research and saw, yeah, there's a very strong signal we get from the market research showing that people will be willing to pay pretty high price for this product. I mean, that price, many people will pay that price for this product. And as we were developing the product, of course, we had to go through a lot of technical challenges. But so to go back to your question, what is it we are trying to address? We are trying to help children improve their social, emotional, and cognitive development. And there's really not that many solutions out there, and for sure nothing similar to what Moxie does.
That's very interesting, the way you selected the market, where you start with a problem and then you extend it to a broader market, and then you select the good point to address it. I think it's very interesting. And you've launched Embodied actually in 2016. And so it's 4 years ago, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
We are now in 2020. You've just launched Moxie a few weeks ago. In the meantime, yes, of course, choosing the market is a lot. I think there is a lot of R&D as well. Moxie is also powered with AI. Actually, can you just tell us a little bit more? What was the process from the start to know? What did it take so long? How did you do to create this and to make this happen with AI, robots, and everything?
Yeah. Actually, I started on this project probably in 2015, formed Embodied as an entity in 2016, and started building a team in 2016, and started R&D probably August of 2016. Yeah, so in a way you could say 4 years is a long time, but given what goes into building a product like this, actually most companies that are technology companies in a similar realm, much bigger than us, they're surprised that it only took 4 years. And many reasons for why. And before even talking about the technology, let's talk about discovery of the product itself. This is not something that exists that we could say, yeah, I mean, we're gonna build a Roomba, but we're gonna make it clean better. We're gonna make a Roomba, but it's gonna have better navigation technology. Or we're gonna have a Roomba, but it's also gonna have a camera for surveillance and security, for instance. So that's number one. The second thing is interaction with humans. It's a lot more complex. I mean, as I mentioned, and you can see here, I have probably 50 patents in navigation technology.
50.
Yeah, and this is the vSLAM technology that's now part of Roomba. And navigation at the time we were doing it was super complex, but it's a very describable problem. You have to figure out where you are, and you have to figure out how to go to where you want to go. So very, very nicely formulated problem to solve. So we engineers, we love description of problems and constraints so we can solve it. But how do you describe social interaction? It's so complex by many, many, many orders of magnitude more, right? So that's one aspect that's hard. It's a new product. What should the product look like? What should it do? What kind of activities should it have with interacting with children? And so on. So it's almost like, I'm not an artist, but I imagine you give an artist a block of wood and say, create an art piece out of this. And there's infinite number of things you can carve out of the wood, right? The number of pieces you take out eventually will leave the art that they envision. And it could be anything. So the process we went through in terms of understanding what the product is, or should be, or could be, is out of millions of possibilities, narrowed it down to Moxie. Basically, we kept taking pieces away until we start seeing the shape of it taking form and getting there. Many, many iterations of the product, right? Even physical incarnation and the industrial design of the product took many iterations.
What did you put away, for instance?
The first thing we wanted to do, because of my background in navigation, we wanted Moxie to be mobile and moving around in the home, right? We wanted it to have hands with our fingers that are articulated and all these things. Yeah. And so those are, for instance, two things. And with that comes a number of sensing capabilities. Like we needed to have a structured light sensor on the robot to do volumetric mapping of the environment for both human-robot interaction, but also for navigation and obstacle detection and avoidance. We cut those off. Actually, in one of the first iterations, it was like, I usually do this like every 6 months, sit down and think through the problem and say, okay, this is where we are, these are the constraints, this is what we are trying to optimize for. And it's like multi-objective optimization. We try to narrow it down. Okay, what are the core features that are going to provide the highest value, and that strips away the rest of it that goes with. This is almost like the carving out pieces of the wood that are not necessary in building the statue that you're carving out. So that's one of the things that went off. The hands became much simpler because we can do body language and gesturing. And one of the big constraints on this, as I mentioned, that makes everything so much different and puts a massive technology challenge on the plate as well, is we wanted to do all of this at a price point that's comparable to a smartphone. So basically, as I said, the business model is buy the hardware plus pay a subscription fee for the service. We have a service recurring cost as well, because we keep new updates. We do a lot of analytics and cloud computing and so on. So that's why we have this service fee. So basically we are saying that the product hardware price should be around $1,000, similar to an iPhone. And you should pay about $50 a month for subscription fee. So if you take rule of thumb from consumer products, consumer robotics in particular, if a product is retailing at $1,000, the price you pay to take the product home, the rule of thumb is that the cost of it has to be about 5 times less. So it has to be no more than $200 cost to you as the company that's building the product. So $200 cost to sell it at $1,000. Otherwise, you do not have a business. You will not make money. Many companies, especially in our field of robotics, have learned that the hard way by launching a product that maybe costs them $100. They build it and for $100 and sell it for $200 and say $200 is a great price point for this product. But then they realize there's no way you can make money out of that. By the time you pay for all the expenses, you are actually losing money. So they would have had to pay, sell it for $499 or $500 to make money. So that's constraint. The cost constraint is super important and makes the challenge so much harder. So how do we, for $200, make a robot that can interact with you, that has the most advanced computer vision, that does facial recognition, expression recognition from your facial affect, body language recognition, natural language understanding, real-time voice recognition, and all that in a package that's $200, which we reduced it down to 7 motors for the articulation of the body. We have a screen display, which we had to create our own screen because none of the technology in the market was, I'll come back to why it wasn't useful enough. And all of that, plus a battery and da-da-da-da. How much money do you think you have left for your computing?
Wow.
Right? So you end up being able to put a $10 processor in the robot, not a $200 NVIDIA Tegra type processor GPU that is usually required to do the kind of computing we do, but you end up with a $10 processor to be able to support the bill of material cost that justifies a $1,000 retail price.
You mean you have a $10 processor in Moxie to handle IA and social interaction?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Wow.
And that's one of the things that makes it super hard to make, because you cannot take off-the-shelf technology that requires a GPU platform or cloud computing and just put it on Moxie. So you have to start squeezing every bit out of the processor and optimizing your algorithms and creating custom algorithms that are running for Moxie to do these things in real time. So that's just give you a bit of a perspective. By the way, this is why many robots of similar nature end up costing tens of thousands of dollars, like $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, because you do not think about the cost equation early on in your process.
I love the way you presented the North Star you have since the beginning. I think it's a masterclass of marketing, we can say. So you've done such a great job in marketing at the beginning, from choosing the market, designing the product, cutting part of the project when needed to reach the goal you've set before. And also you have a wonderful technology. You use AI, robotics, so there was a lot of innovation in Moxie. But there's also another part where you did actually pretty good. You have a dream team of employees at Moxie. So you've designed Moxie with Yves Béard, which is a famous designer. But in your team, you have also former employees of Pixar, Disney, of Warner Bros., psychology professors, neurology professors, among others. Why it is so important to take together all these stars to make the project happen?
Any difficult project starts and ends with an amazing team. If there is one lesson I have learned in my 20 years of entrepreneurship, is that a strong, high-performing team is the most competitive, important competitive advantage any company could have. The most important competitive advantage, more so than patents and your trade secrets and so on. It's your team and the team culture. So that has been something I've learned over the last 20 years. And at Embodied, from day one, when we started building the team, literally, I mean, imagine I can share with you pictures of our first office that was empty space with employee number 1 there, whose name is Peter Thiel. And Peter is still part of the company, amazing builder, jack of all trades, from electronics to software to firmware to sensors, you name it. Super passionate and excited. To Ulrich, who is a Danish colleague of mine, is a mechanical engineer behind Moxie. Again, super passionate, craftsman, an artist, just amazing. To the type of people you mentioned that we have from the creative world, from Disney and Pixar and Warner Brothers and so on.
Yeah, why it's important, this part? I'm very curious.
Yeah, it's super important because of a number of things. Number one, we are building a lifelike character that must be adorable. Like similar to Pixar animated short we talked about. Like there needs to be a performance in this as well. It cannot just be raw and dry and cut interaction with a machine. It has to feel endearing, and you've got to make an emotional connection to it. That's number one. Number two reason is this. Again, at a before inception of the company, I knew that one thing that's going to be very important in determining whether Moxie will be successful or not is whether Moxie can keep a child engaged for an extended period of time, not for days or weeks, but months and years. And the state of the art when we started the company is that any robot interacting with a child can maybe sustain their interest for a couple of hours. I mean, we have seen this actually in the recent few years. There's been a number of companies coming out with social robots. Jibo, Curie, Vector from Anki, the company called Anki, that the robotic toys. Very amazing projects, major accomplishments, but they represented what they call 10 minutes of play value. So you 10 minutes after you interact with it, it's like, okay, I got it. This is it. I know there's no more curiosity left. The novelty wore off and so on. So I knew that engaging a child for an extended period of time is important. And so I started thinking about how can we do that? What is the answer to that? And intuitively, I said, it's all about content, what we call content. So if you watch TV, if your TV that you paid $1,000 for, if your beautiful flat panel, high definition 4K TV, and there was one channel on TV that had programmed for an hour a day, okay, we could engage you for an hour a day maybe, or a subset of that. So content is what was going to be super important. And who better than Hollywood to know how to generate content? And we live just in the backyard of Hollywood, right? We live in Pasadena, Glendale, which is right next. Glendale is actually where Disney Imagineering is and a lot of the studios are. So I went to Hollywood to seek inspiration and talent to understand how are we going to generate content for something that did not exist, by the way. Moxie didn't yet exist. It was like just intuition of connecting dots. So we're going to have a platform technology that can interact with people, but what is it interact about? That's content, right? So who can help me with figuring out what content looks like? So I went to Disney and started interacting with people, talked to some friends and said, you know what, I really think content is going to be super important. I probably need someone from Disney. And one friend of mine who is a serial entrepreneur and now an investor, John Waller is his name. He said, let me introduce you to this guy. He's a really interesting guy. His name is Craig Allen. And Craig is one of the best storytellers in Hollywood. He's done a bunch of interesting things at Disney, Jim Henson Company, and then most recently he had done his own video gaming studio, and he created the first Call of Duty game, which I'm sure a lot of us have played.
I played it.
Right?
Yeah.
So I'm introduced to Craig. You know, Craig is in a place in his life where he's enjoying life. He's traveling all the time, all over the world, and just having fun. But introduce you to him. Maybe he can introduce you to someone that could work for Embodied to help you with this. So Craig and I met, and we hit it off right away. And I asked him, I said, can you do some consulting for us? And he said, well, you know, I travel all the time. I don't know if I'm going to be available. I said, well, how many hours can you do? He said, I can do a couple of hours a week. I said, okay. He said, but I'm not going to be local. I'm traveling. I'm going to go to Russia next, and I'm going to be to Thailand to go diving and this and that and that. I said, fine, no worries. 2 hours a week, done deal. Within 2 months, he fell in love with the company and the team and joined us full time. So now Craig is our chief creative officer, and he's brought amazing talent to the team to help with this. And then the other aspect is neurology and neuroscience and computational neuroscience. Same thing. I can tell you stories, and I know we run out of time here. But in order to be able to have impact on children's behavior and social, emotional, and cognitive skills, you need to understand neurology, you need to understand child development and psychology, which is why we merge that together with the technology and the creative. So it's a combination of the health aspect of it for child development, creative, and the technology being the vehicle to deliver that to the children.
Yeah, I have one last question. Actually, you were influenced by Hollywood, but I think probably in the coming month here, you will probably as well influence them with Moxie, which is really revolutionary. When we listen to you, I feel like I am in a Hollywood movie with Moxie and with all these stories. So what do you think about, and you have an extensive career in robotics, so that's why I'm asking you this question. What do you think, how will evolve the robotics industry in the coming years? Will it look like Hollywood presented it a little bit with some different movies? Is it the next big thing for you?
Well, I mean, I have been doing robotics all my life. It's only in the last 5 years robotics has become popular. So I'm married to robotics. I have a passion for it. So I've been doing it because of my passion, not because it's the latest, most popular topic for investors to invest in. But the field has evolved a lot already in just the last 10, 15 years. I can tell you this. One of the very dear friends and colleagues of mine that I've worked with at Evolution, at iRobot, and now he has joined Embodied, is Mario Munich, who is head of our engineering. So we have been fighting the fight together for the last 20 years. First time I met Mario, I remember he was walking with a headset microphone behind a robot and telling the robot to stop. And then the name of the robot is Marge. I remember I saw him walking and was saying, Marge, stop, Marge, stop. And the robot just kept rolling along. And just to tell you that we have come such a long way in like just voice recognition and conversational technology. Back then, we could barely recognize one word. We could not even recognize one word, stop. So that's has been a long way. I think Amazon with the Alexa and Amazon Echo created a revolution in voice-enabled interfaces, and that was enabled by deep learning and availability of data and computing that enabled that whole thing to break through, because for 30, 40 years, people were trying to work on voice recognition and it was just not working. I mean, all of us probably have had cars with in-car voice recognition system that never worked. For instance, you wanted to tell your car, give me directions to this address. By the time you were able to navigate through, get it to understand the address, you were at the destination. It would take 20, 30 minutes for you to input address. Now you can say very casually with an accent, in the background noise, children screaming, say, take me to this address, and the robot says, done. It will give you directions immediately. And we are much more beyond that now. And with Moxie, actually, you will see we have advanced it even further. Computer vision, when I was at Aalborg University doing my master's degree and then PhD in robotics, as I mentioned, I was in a computer vision lab. At the time, we had a Cray, Silicon Graphics Cray supercomputer in our one room that was huge room with a bunch of computer racks in there. This was a SIGGRAPH, I think Power Onyx, like 10 processor, GPU, blah, 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 computer. And I remember at the time I was doing my master's, there was a PhD student from Sweden that came to finish his PhD to use the computer to do a computer vision algorithm that could track one object. So basically, and I remember he was the computer that he was working on the station one in this room. Across the hallway was the supercomputer, and the algorithm was running on that. He had put cameras in the hallway, and he had taken one object that was similar to a book that the algorithm was supposed to recognize and track, and he had put a string all the way to his desk, and he would move it 1 centimeter, let the supercomputer crunch on the numbers for 10 minutes, and then spit out the result, and then he would move it another inch and do that computing. So computer vision has come a long way. We can do things real time, as you know, in many areas and so on. So these are the things that have come together. Cost of computing obviously keeps coming down. The Moore's law still is in effect and is helping us. The mobile cell phone industry has done a lot of good things that help us as roboticists, because they have improved cost of computing, lower power, connectivity, and that cloud computing is also helping a lot. And now the world has changed in a way that the ecosystem is developing around robotics. People can actually access capital. In my last company, Evolution Robotics, when I went to Silicon Valley to raise money from investors, most meetings when I said robot and hardware would end right there. No more conversation was necessary. They were not interested. Now there is a lot more money, billions of dollars get invested in robotics and different fields of robotics. So that is going to fuel the growth. And I think this is a very exciting time. We are able to do things that are amazing and creating robots and experiences and services that were not possible even 5 years ago. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens, because this is just the beginning. And I think it's gonna go on an exponential curve. So again, in the late 2000, like 2007, 8, I used to give talks and I would say the car will be the ultimate robot of our century. And I was expecting like by 2070, 2080 timeframe that would happen, but we are already a place where we have self-driving cars. They are not mass adopted yet, but we have had millions of miles or millions of kilometers of autonomous driving in various conditions, in a desert condition, snow, rain, and construction area. So it's going faster than one can predict. So it's impossible to predict, I think, how fast it can go. I'm in it and I deal with it. You said 4 years is a long time, and it is a long time. I mean, I've been doing robotics entrepreneurship for 20 years. It's 2 lifetimes, maybe, in terms of career, but things are accelerating significantly.
Oh, thank you, Paolo. It was a fantastic story about Embodied and Moxie. And so you have covered a lot of subjects, and I hope that Embodied will be one of the future leader of robotics, and that in 5 years, or maybe 10 years, when you will be a global leader, we will be able to do again another interview.
Thank you.
Thank you,
I
Paolo.
appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure. It was my pleasure. Take care.
Thank you. Take care.